Hello, I am Emily Messer, Vice President for Enrollment Management at Jacksonville State University. It is my pleasure to welcome you to JSU's first virtual awards ceremony. Each year, the admissions team looks forward to presenting awards to our future Gamecocks at ceremonies across the region. While this year's presentation format is different, our commitment to helping each of you with the next chapter of your lives is unwavering. This virtual awards ceremony is one step closer as we count down to college, or shall I say, countdown to JSU. Congratulations to all of the award recipients. We cannot wait to see you on campus this summer for Gamecock orientation.
My name is Lauren Finley, and I'm the Director of Admissions at Jacksonville State University. Each year, JSU honors outstanding high school students through our scholarship programs for their academic, music, talent, and leadership abilities. It is our pleasure to be able to recognize all of the students who are choosing to enroll at JSU in the fall of 2020 through our virtual awards ceremonies. And on behalf of our acting president, Dr. Dawn Killingsworth, our faculty, staff, students, and alumni, we are pleased to be able to begin the awards celebration with the following students. We will get started with the students that I serve from Ohatchee High School. Receiving a Gamecock grant, Jacob Bowers. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Dalton Fitch. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Sarah Atkinson. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Rachel Christopher. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, William Hicks. Receiving a JSU Honors Scholarship, which is JSU's most prestigious scholarship, Brianna Bailey. Receiving the Paul and Delia Williams Scholarship, Dalton Fitch. Receiving the Leadership Scholarship, Tyler Hester. And receiving a Band Scholarship, Brianna Bailey. Congratulations to the class of 2020 and the Ohatchee High School Indians. Now I'll move on to the students that I get to serve at Oxford High School. Receiving a Gamecock grant, Cody Allen. Receiving the Gamecock grant, Ariel Aldos. Receiving a Gamecock grant, Logan Davenport. Receiving a Gamecock grant, Ben Herndon. Receiving a Gamecock grant, Morris Jackson. Receiving a Gamecock grant, Bailey Mitchell. Receiving a Gamecock grant, Caitlin Moore. Receiving a Gamecock grant, Gracie Reeves. Also receiving a Gamecock grant, Haley Reeves. Receiving a Gamecock grant, Zachary Wilk. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Jamerica Crockett. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Lauren Spivey. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Madeline Spivey. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Emily Thrasher. And receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Aubrey Barrett. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Efrain Munoz. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Esther Shull. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Mackenzie West. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Mally Barefoot. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Jasmine Kennedy. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Ethan Page. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Hogan Page. Also receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Connor Stinson. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Alyssa Surrett. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, James Carroll. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Caitlin Shin. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Ethan Wyatt. And receiving JSU's Honors Scholarship, again, one of our most prestigious awards at JSU, Ashlyn Abernathy. Receiving the Calhoun County Alumni Scholarship, Rihanna Metters. Rihanna is also the recipient of our Competitive Leadership Scholarship. Receiving a Band Scholarship, Caitlin Chin. Receiving a Choral Scholarship, Esther Scholl. Esther is also the recipient of a JSU Encore Show Choir Scholarship. She's also receiving a Vocal Scholarship. And receiving the Bester Adams Scholarship for Future Educators, Maria Venegas. Congratulations to the class of 2020 for the students that I serve, and also to all of the students that are choosing to enroll at JSU in the fall.
Hello, everyone. My name is Haley again. I'm a senior admissions counselor at Jacksonville State University, and I am excited to get to recognize some of my students today. So we're going to start with the Alabama School for the Blind. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Chastity Thomas. And also receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Cameron Hardy. Continuing with Asheville High School, receiving the Gamecock Grant is Jordan Williams. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Katie Dole. Jada Wills. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Skylar Glass. Joseph Green. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Sabrina Brown. Sydney Chamness. And Nathaniel Williams. JSU awards a leadership scholarship as well, which goes to students who exhibit extraordinary leadership qualities and service throughout their high school career. So receiving the leadership scholarship is Julia Coker. Continuing with B.B. Comer Memorial School, receiving the Gamecock Grant is Ashton Cook. And Ashton is also a recipient of a jazz scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Grant are Nisha Green, Abbott Tice, Lyrical Williams. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is William Barnett, Julius McCain. Continuing with Cedar Bluff High School, receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Noah Hawthorne, Manuel Lugo. With Central High School of Clay County Future Gamecocks, receiving the Gamecock Grant is Demetrius Hardy. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Chloe Brown, Maggie Hanners. Samantha Lambert is receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship as well as the Pete Matthews Memorial Scholarship. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Hannah Lett. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship as well as the Pete Matthews Memorial Scholarship is Abby Cantrell. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship along with the Pete Matthews Memorial Scholarship is Noah Higgins. Tanner Hurst is receiving our Gamecock Excellence Scholarship as well as our Pete Matthews Memorial Scholarship. And receiving our Leadership Scholarship at Central High School of Clay County is Megan Cooper. With Cherokee County High School, receiving a Gamecock Grant is Dylan Culver, LaShonda Williams, Alyssa Wood. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Emma Hanna, Elizabeth Stevens. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Maggie Amos, Chloe Sanford. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, as well as the Tim Garner Scholarship, is Ansley Davis. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Catherine Peak. Catherine is also receiving a band scholarship. as well as the JSU Encore Show Choir Scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Audrey Wester. And receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship is Raven Garrett. And Raven is also a recipient of a band scholarship. Moving on to future Gamecocks at Childersburg High School, receiving the Gamecock Grant, Christian Gardner. Donald McGinnis. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Kayla Smith. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Haley Sanders. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Christina Batson. Madeline Reed. And receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship is Jeffrey Patterson. Bailey Robinson. And receiving our Leadership Scholarship at Childersburg High School is Tavaria Johnson. Moving on to Cleburne County High School. Receiving the Gamecock Grant is Savannah Hurd. Reese Morrison. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Bailey Cook. And Bailey is also receiving a band scholarship. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Seth Elkins. And Seth is also a recipient of a band scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Bailey Griffin. Levi Harcrow. Levi is also receiving our Alumni Association Annual Legacy Scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Saxon Kennedy. And receiving our JSU Honors Scholarship, which is our most prestigious scholarship at JSU. It is a very competitive scholarship. So we want to congratulate John Russell Reeves with Cleburne County High School for receiving a JSU Honors Scholarship. Receiving our Leadership Scholarship at East Hamilton High School is Cade Meeks. Continuing with Etowah High School, receiving a Gamecock Grant is Sydney Jones. Jemiah Scott. Trinity Worthy. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Rashana Powell. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Caitlin Henry. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Tyler Freeman. Lauren Johnson. Jordan Walker. And receiving our Leadership Scholarship at Etowah High School is Alexis Brown. Moving on with Fayetteville High School is receiving our Gamecock Grant is Trevor Deloach. Receiving our Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Shauna Sherber. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Luke Reed. And receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship is Emily Thrash. Moving into Gadsden City High School future Gamecocks, Gamecock Grant goes to Daniel Andres, Kylie Grimmett, Shantorius Martin, Angel Milner, Shina Mostella, Michaela Reeves, Sarah Waits. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Spencer Gray, Morgan Huell, Kajana Mims, Anna Reddish, Sienna Rhodes, Lexi Solano, Micah Swain. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Charlie Chung, Samuel Jaggers, Lucas Minton, Ethan Nessler. And Ethan is also a recipient of one of our band scholarships, choral scholarships, and receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Carly Tollison. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Kimberly Flores, Kaylin Harris. Kaylin is also receiving a vocal scholarship to JSU, as well as a choral scholarship to JSU. And a band scholarship. Congratulations, Kaylin. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Ashley Jaggers. Receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship is Abigail Hall. And receiving our Leadership Scholarship for Gadsden City High School is Ava Malone. At Gaston High School, we have receiving a Gamecock Grant, as well as a band scholarship is Allison Alice Wood. At Galesville High School, receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Kylie Mae Glenn. Future Gamecocks from Glencoe High School, receiving the Gamecock Grant is James Holder. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Jeffrey Contras. Joshua Mobley. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Rachel Bradshaw. Hunter Fordham. Gracie Gow. Thomas Harrison. Christopher Lang. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Abigail Coker. Isaac Duke. And Isaac is also receiving our Etowah County Alumni Chapter Scholarship. The Gamecock Tradition Scholarship goes to Lainey Golden, Caroline Phillips, Alyssa Rayford. Receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship is Austin Weiss. And Austin is also receiving the Joe and Brenda Ford Scholarship. And receiving our Leadership Scholarship at Glencoe High School is Abby Weiss. At Hanley High School, we have receiving a Gamecock Grant, Mabin Huey, India Jones, Alexis Pinkard. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Alexa Cummings, Yabrika Nunn, Abby Tripp, Kyva Wilson. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Dakota McCard, Tanaya Rachel. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Aubrey Whidden. From Hoax Bluff High School, Gamecock Grant goes to Darian Meads. The Gamecock Spirit Scholarship for Caitlin Bennett, Mackenzie Klein, Ashton Gullidge, Abigail Holcomb. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Abby Alford. Abby is also receiving our Bill and Catherine Peacock Scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Haley Woods. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Rebecca Garrison. Heaven Orr. Callie Robinson. Receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Mason Driscoll. Kobe Latham. And receiving our Leadership Scholarship at Hoax Bluff High School is Abby Morrison. For Lincoln High School, receiving the Gamecock Grant, Ravius Garrett, Zion McClooney, Jordan Sims. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Ethan Cash. And Ethan is also a recipient of a drama scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Morgan Thompson. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Ethan St. John. At Moody High School, we have receiving a Gamecock Grant, Abby Fowler, Nicholas Hodges, Kennedy Poe, Reagan Waters. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Braden Carpinetti, Sarah Caverna, Landy Mitchell, Hunter Perrigan, Lindsay Richardson, Allison Taylor, Sydney Tyler. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, McKenna Paget, Jonathan White. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Emily Green, Eric Nold. From Mumford High School, we have receiving a Gamecock Grant, Autumn Anglin, Heaven McCarley. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Kylie Franklin, Dovey Licato, Hannah Parker, Lindsay Smith, Christian Thomas, Sydney Wright. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Jasmine Aguilar, Tiana Hood, Lindsay Peterson, Austin Steele. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship from Notre Dame High School in Chattanooga, Tennessee is Bradley Summit. At Pathways Academy, we have Savannah Blair receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship. From Pell City High School, future Gamecocks, and we have receiving a Gamecock grant, LaShonta Armstrong, Jacayla Foreman, Emily White, receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Riley Branham, Deontay Bush, Javon Harmon, Olivia Weiss, receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Madison Decker. And Madison is also receiving a band scholarship to JSU. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Cassidy Phillips. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Marquise Cammett. William Howard. Receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Kara Vincent. From Raglan High School, we have receiving a Gamecock grant, Nathaniel Kelly. And receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Madeline Benson. Megan Harris. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Sarah Shaw. From Ranburne High School, we have receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Devin Bailey. Dylan Gibson. Jacob Smith. From Randolph County High School, receiving a Gamecock grant is Damian Berglund. Megan McGuire. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Cassidy Kabetsky. Alexandra Shepard. Samantha Taylor. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Sutton Phillips. Jacob White. And receiving our Leadership Scholarship from Randolph County High School is Timothy Moat. From Sandrock High School, receiving the Gamecock grant, Audrey Bradshaw. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Brooklyn Butler. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Amber Roberts. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Elijah Bates. Howard Holland. From Sardis High School, we have receiving a Gamecock grant, Caitlin Armstrong, David Multane, Caitlin Peppers, Nicole Trussell. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Madison Berger, Kylie Foster, Alexis Love, Josie Turk. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Ambria Hayes, Isaac Kruger, Caitlin Taylor. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Kayla Shands, Abigail Tarvin, Jesslyn Taylor. Receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Taryn Darden. From Southside High School, we have receiving the Gamecock grant, Emery Helms, Lauren Johnson, Shaylee Little, Cheyenne Yates. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Taylor Beard, Aaron Day. Aaron is also receiving a band scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Ainsley Ham, Taylor Hood, Anna Marler, Anthony Robertson, Macy Williams. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Mackenzie Adair, Austin Bettinger, Katie Cushing. Katie is also receiving a piano scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Lily Anderson, Micah Prickett. Receiving the Gamecock Prestige Scholarship is Jacob Flemings. At Spring Garden High School, we have receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Charlie Grissom. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Caden Fleming. Springville High School, we have receiving a Gamecock grant, Sawyer Chapman, Caitlin Howell, Noah Lee, Autumn Poole, Trinity Rydaller, Beck Walker, Shelby Wilkinson, Julian Williams, Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Brian Davis. Gloria Graham. Noah Stewart. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Analia Gonzalez. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Rachel Powell. Zachary Wilson. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Brooke Davis. Braden Kaiser. Annie Yeager. We are starting with St. Clair County High School. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Tabitha Weisner. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Ashlyn McClanahan. At Sylacauga High School, we have receiving a Gamecock grant, Jacoby Cook. And Jacoby is also a recipient of a band scholarship. Gamecock grant for Dalton Giles. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Jordan Giller. Taylor Strickland. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Peyton Bearden. Carrie McGrady. Lacey McIntosh. Lacey is also a recipient of a band scholarship to JSU. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Cole Porch. Marzell Castleberry. From Talladega High School is receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship. Gamecock Spirit Scholarship to Niles Cook. Shiania Crone. Jacory Dates. Litzy Diego. Fabian Finley. Donovan Miller. Destiny Presley. Amaya Randall. Jakiria Spidell. Asia Ware. Sedarian Woods. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Carolyn Humphrey. And Carolyn is also a recipient of a drama scholarship to JSU. And also a gospel choir scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Lucas Pennington. From Victory Christian School, we have receiving a Gamecock grant, Kendall Keller. And Kendall's also receiving a gospel choir scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Michael Cheatwood. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Seth Watson. And Seth is also a recipient of the Wells Fargo Annual Scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Jacob Bowers. And receiving our Leadership Scholarship from Victory Christian School is Lindy Thompson. From West End High School, receiving a Gamecock grant, Mackenzie Elrod. Jalen Rosenberger. Receiving the Gamecock grant, or Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Brianna Martin. And receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Kane Harrelson. Receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Dustin Bars. From Westbrook Christian School, receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship is Ashlyn Hollingsworth. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship is Macy Beecham. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship is Rebecca Marr. Brandon Morgan. Jaden Saxton. Receiving the Gamecock Excellence Scholarship is Jamison Benefield. Moving into Winterboro High School, receiving the Gamecock grant is Raymond Butterworth. Isaiah Holland. Nadiria Middlebrooks. Joshua Tanner. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Julia Cook. Cameron Edwards. Micaiah Keith. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Ricky Chappell. Peyton Wilson. And receiving our Gamecock Excellence Scholarship is Lilith Klein.
Hello, I'm Noelle Stovall, the Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions and Recruitment at Jacksonville State University. I also get to serve as an admissions counselor for many of our students in Calhoun County, and I'm excited to be presenting the following awards and scholarships to these students. Starting with our students from Alexandria High School, receiving the Gamecock grant, Avery Darnell. Receiving the Gamecock grant as well, Nathan Peters. Receiving the Gamecock grant, Jared Williamson. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Millie Burt. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Pamela Davis. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Catherine Holsey. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Kylie Jordan. And receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, John Mitchell, who is also being awarded the Alumni Calhoun County Chapter Scholarship. And receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Madison Parker. And receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Victor Sutton. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, April Briggs. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Lillian Cook. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Taylor Davis. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Kaylee Johnson. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Ashley Parker. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Madison Wallace. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Madison Sisson. Madison is also the recipient of the Sonny King Memorial Scholarship. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Taylor Thompson. And receiving a Leadership Scholarship given to students who show leadership, Connor Norris. And receiving a JSU Honor Scholarship, which is the most prestigious freshman scholarship at JSU, Celia Calhoun. Celia is also the recipient of the Pritchett Sharon McCullers Scholarship. Now moving to our students from Anniston High School. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Destiny Moody. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Joanna Murillo. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Khalil Peoples. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, April Dean. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Alicia Fernandez. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Trinity Lockett. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Tamara Hardiman. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Jaden Miller. And now for our students at Faith Christian. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Carmelo Gomez. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Dalton Rogers. And receiving a Leadership Scholarship, Gabrielle Frichette from Faith Christian School. To our students from ICRA Math and Science Academy. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Noah Al-Sadi. And receiving a JSU Honor Scholarship, which is again our most prestigious freshman scholarship at JSU, Layla Hamdan. Now for our students at Jacksonville Christian Academy. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Macy Barnwell. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Jonathan Carter. And now for our students at Jacksonville High School. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Jackson Burrell. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Sam Dingler. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Ashlyn Farr. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Stephen Fuller. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Riley Harris. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Luke Jackson. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Nicole Jones. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Riley Mears. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Amarion Pope. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, DeAndre Sigler. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Shelby Osborne. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Emily Garoop. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Lily Vernon. Lily is also recipient of a JSU Encore Show Choir Scholarship. Receiving the Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Coley Birchfield. Coley is also a recipient of the Alumni Calhoun County Chapter Scholarship. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Adelaide Zahner. She is also the recipient of a Calhoun County Chapter Alumni Scholarship and a Drama Scholarship. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Aubrey Carter. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Destiny Ingram. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Hannah Grace Weathers. Receiving a Gamecock Prestige Scholarship, Savannah Clark. And receiving a Leadership Scholarship, which is again based on leadership skills shown throughout high school, Bailey Harper. Bailey is also a recipient of the Alumni Association Annual Legacy Scholarship. Now for our students at Oxford Christian School. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Nicholas Bell. And now for our recipients from Piedmont High School. Receiving the Gamecock Grant, Maggie Watts. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Haley Brown. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Adeline Straub. And receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Sean Young. Now moving to our students from Pleasant Valley High School. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Alyssa Cheatham. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Keely Starr. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Ethan Warren. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Emily Cangelosi. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Madison Hayes. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Coleman Haynes. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Emma Hood. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Desiree Parker. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Brody Phillips. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Carmen Sparks. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Tristan Blom. Tristan is also the recipient of a Calhoun County Chapter Alumni Scholarship. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Dalton Estes. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Trenton Finley. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Emily Kendall. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Braden Wright. Receiving a Gamecock Prestige Scholarship, Anna Voss. Receiving a Leadership Scholarship, Hattie Ewing. She is also the recipient of the Alumni Association Annual Legacy Scholarship. Receiving a Leadership Scholarship as well, Chandler Dorsett. She is also the recipient of a Calhoun County Chapter Alumni Scholarship. Receiving a Leadership Scholarship, Gabe Travis. He is also the recipient of a band scholarship. And receiving a JSU Honor Scholarship, our most prestigious freshman scholarship at JSU, Wyatt Ingram. Wyatt is also the recipient of the Alma Road Memorial Scholarship. And now for our students from Sachs High School. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Brianna Bell. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Mia Osborne. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Lauren Brown. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Lindsey Brown. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Lasagna Crook. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Malia Spears. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Jahir Ortiz Rodriguez. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Faith Bonas. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Xavier Bissett. Receiving a Leadership Scholarship, Caitlin Harper. Now starting with our student from Trinity Christian Academy. Receiving the Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Daly Abbott. Beginning with our students now from Weaver High School. Receiving the Gamecock Grant, Clessy Akhtar. Receiving the Gamecock Grant, Journey Mitchell. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Caroline Barker. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Lorelei Brown. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Mason Lee. Receiving the Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Aaron Smith. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Marley Tucker. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Aiden Goodwin. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Wesley Lewis. And receiving a Leadership Scholarship, Sydney Hambrick. Now for our students from Welborn High School. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Shelby Crosby. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Holly Woosley. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Hannah Young. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Justin Berry. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Haley Thrasher. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Charlie Owen. Receiving a Leadership Scholarship, Sydney Reinhard. And last but not least, our students from White Plains High School. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Chance Anders. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, Luke Larson. Receiving a Gamecock Grant, George Young. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Jarrett Crow. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Hannah Dyer. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Addison Edwards. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Jaden Henshaw. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Chase Helms. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Gabby Hinkle. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Morgan Huckabee. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, Emily Owen. Receiving a Gamecock Spirit Scholarship, JD Turner. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, William Osteen. Receiving a Gamecock Pride Scholarship, Madeline Wethington. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Ashton Armstrong. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, James Jenkins. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Samantha Jimenez. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, James Middlebrooks. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Connor Murphy. Receiving a Gamecock Tradition Scholarship, Brooklyn Verdi. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Macy Glick. Macy is also the recipient of a choral scholarship. Receiving a Gamecock Excellence Scholarship, Madeline Jones. Receiving a Gamecock Prestige Scholarship, Connor Muncher. Receiving a Leadership Scholarship, Benjamin Rouse. Congratulations to all of our students from Calhoun County. We're excited you'll be joining us at JSU, and go Gamecocks!